Well, welcome to, now I'm really loud. Shopping with Millennials. My name is Tracy Cambies, and while I'm getting this set up, and I'm with Deloitte Consulting. There we go. And I'm joined by Pat McGraw and Gautam Kotwal. I just screwed your name up, Gautam, sorry. From Kohl's Corporation. And who in the audience is from a retail organization? Okay. And then who in the audience is from Carrie? Carrie's also from Kohl. She's sitting over here in the corner. And who is from a consulting organization in the room? Yep. And anybody else? Could you share where you're from? Other organizations? Marketing, digital agencies. Credit Bureau. Okay, very cool. So what we thought we would share with you guys today is a little bit of information around what's going on not only in the retail industry, but generally in the landscape around millennials, a little bit up front. And we'll talk more specifically about what's going on with millennials in retail, and also where digital influence is actually occurring. And we're happy to share Deloitte. I'll share on the Deloitte website, I'll tell you how to get to some of this information that we actually have. A recent study called the Digital Influence Study. We do it every year. It actually talks about where in the shopping experience digital influence is occurring, at what percentage, at what rate. We've been doing it over the last 3 years, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that. And I just lost my slide here. But let's get started on this content, and then please feel free to ask questions as we go along. The reason why we're not standing is we wanted this to be a little different. We know you can't necessarily see us really great. This is a little bit about a fireside chat. It's more about the questions and answers that we're going to go through, and hopefully you can interact with us around this, right? This is supposed to be a little more intimate and less presentation-like. So that's why we're not standing up in front of you, just in case you were wondering. So what's going on with millennials today is that right now the oldest millennial is around 35. So they cover between 1990 and 2000 range. And some would say 88, 89-ish too. Now, they actually make up the largest, and by 2020 they will make up the largest percentage of the workforce. And that's about a total of, I think they are estimating about 92 million people in that generation. They are the largest generation so far, even more than the baby boomers. The baby boomers are around 77 million. The Gen Xers are around 55, 56 million. And these great millennials are 92 million people strong. And that means that not only are they the strongest portion of the workforce, they'll have the largest percentage of income, possibly related to how many people will be in that workforce, and then they are also the newest generation to the workforce. So they're the people that are working for you or will be working for you in the next few years, if they're not already. They are also more digitally connected than ever before. They grew up with digital devices. Now, not from the same ages as, like I'm a Gen Xer. I'm just on the tail end of a Gen Xer, but my children are 12 and 9, and they have had some sort of iPod device in their hands since probably the time they were 18 months, right? And yes, I probably am that parent, so no judgment, please. But the millennials are harder to reach with transactional tactics than we were as the Gen Xers and before. Direct communication or direct email very generically would work for them. It doesn't work for millennials. They are more socially connected than ever before. Their primary mechanisms for accessing information is through Facebook and Instagram, Netflix, Twitter, Vine, YouTube. All of those are their outlets for gaining information and being influenced. And they will take influence from friends more so than they will take influence from any other outlet. And as long as their friends have connected with it in some way, connected with that information in some way, they will connect with it as well. So what does that really mean from a digital perspective? So I mentioned Deloitte did a digital influence. We do a digital influence study every year, and we have for the last 3 years. And these are just a few. This is an infographic for you. But since 2013, what we saw was an extreme amount of growth in a spike between reason why we call it digital influence and not just mobile influence or online influence is because it's actually now combined. We really consider it all one set of digital transactions and digital touch points. Whereas in 2013, we were measuring it separately because online was a bit different than mobile was at that point in time, and mobile has significantly changed and is generating just as much influence as online capability is. But the growth that we've seen is that it actually spiked dramatically. In 2005, mobile was about 5%, and you can see, in 2013, mobile was about 5%, and then online was around 14%. And then by 2016, mobile was up at 37% in influence. And overall digital was at 56%. So what does that mean? That 56 cents of every dollar spent is digitally influenced in some way, form, or fashion. That means from the time of inspire to the time of possible return or consumption of an item, of a product or a service, that it is 56 cents on every dollar is influenced through some digital capability, whether it be through your mobile device or through online or some digital signage in some way in the store. Now, it doesn't mean that the store is going away. That's not what this is telling us. This is just saying that there's a lot of digital influence along that journey, that consumer journey. And it's only going to continue. We believe it's going to continue to grow. While it flattened out over the last year, between 15 and 16, it will continue to grow dramatically over the next 3 to 5 years. I think the other interesting data point on this infographic before we kick into some more specific questions is that the non-millennial usage of digital in 2 or 3 phases of their shopping journey is 78% up from last year. So if you think about, we kind of look at the shopping journey as about 5 different phases. 3 out of those, 2 to 3 out of them are 70% more digitally influenced than they were a year before. That's a significant increase in behavior from a digital influence perspective. And so what does that really mean from a retailer? It means there's more data out there now that you have access to, you could have access to, you may not have access to it yet, you haven't thought about it. From a marketing perspective, that means there's even more outlets and touch points in which to reach that consumer or that millennial particularly. And it also means that you have to start thinking differently about what you're doing today with your customer, and also what you're doing with the data that you do have access to, and what you're going to do differently about the data that you don't have access to. And so with that, let's talk a little bit about Kohl's and what they're doing. So Pat, you want to give a little background on who Kohl's is and where you guys came from?
Little background, I saw when Tracy asked, a lot of hands go up from other retailers. So a pretty traditional story in the brick and mortar retail space. Kohl's came into existence in 1962 in Milwaukee area, and we grew. Thank you. We'll take turns yelling here. And the growth story of Kohl's is a very interesting one. Went public in 1992, and by that time had expanded around the Midwest pretty significantly. Then was a great growth story through the 90s into the 2000s, where we opened up. Now we are at just over 1,100 stores in 49 states. So it was definitely a very interesting growth story. In addition to that, in 2001, we launched Kohls.com. Very similar to a lot of other retailers. It was a website business. It was the web store. We still continued to grow brick and mortar, which still makes up obviously a large percentage of our sales. But those two things, through the maturity process, took very different paths and grew up. And again, I think we're not dissimilar to a lot of other retailers in that way. So as I mentioned, a little over 1,100 stores, about $19 billion of revenue. And then we've got a mix what's in the store. We carry national brands, but we also develop our own products and bring them to market as well. We're headquartered in Milwaukee, and then we have a digital innovation center in Milpitas, California, so in Silicon Valley. So I'm in the Milwaukee office, and Gautam is based in our Milpitas office.
Gautam, why don't you tell us a little bit about why California, and what year you guys actually started the California office, and why you decided to go there?
Yeah, as Pat said, right, we all knew that digital revolution was happening. And our CTO, who has roots from the Silicon Valley, realized that to really grow in digital, he wanted to acquire the right talent. And so he's founded an office in about 4 years ago. I'm employee number 1 in that office. Came out of Netflix, joined Kohl's, and similarly, a lot of folks followed from Macy's, Yahoo, PayPal, Apple, and we really built this Milpitas office. And the focus was to run Kohls.com, mobile, and now most of our analytics also comes from Milpitas.
So given that Milpitas is starting to take on some new areas like data and data science and work with and bridge this gap between home office, because that's where a lot of the core operations is still occurring, like store operations and merchandising. Let's turn now and talk a little bit about the data and what's going on with data and the stores. So in this evolution that we're seeing happening from a digital perspective, and the millennials are changing their shopping behavior, and they're changing the way we interact with digital, and there's more data accessible today, given the number of touch points that they have with social media, with email, and just through digital and online capabilities, as well as in-store digital capabilities with kiosks, I believe, and gift registries and things of that nature. Where does Kohl's really fit into this data landscape, and how you're using data and your stores as assets?
Yeah, so Tracy, you kind of mentioned how people shop is changing, it's evolving. And when we look to strategize about how do we compete, and how do we compete with our online-only retailers, how do we compete with other traditional brick-and-mortar retailers, how do we leverage our assets is really what it comes down to. So what we have that the online-only retailers don't have is more than 1,100 stores in 49 states. Right, so we can leverage our stores, we can optimize our supply chain, right? We can do things like ship from our stores. So that effort has started. We've been doing that for a couple seasons now. Buy online, pick up in store. Online-only retailers haven't come as far as when you look in apparel. And in the apparel industry, people like to go into the store, try things on, touch and feel things. So I think we can compete there, and we really want to put our strategies towards our strengths. In addition to that, our customers, we have a very loyal set of customers. We have one of the strongest and best Kohl's Charge programs, so private charge programs, which essentially was our original loyalty program. But then in addition to that, a couple of years ago, we launched a Yes to You loyalty, which has been recognized as a very successful loyalty program. So again, additional assets, which also give us a lot more data about our customers, has expanded from maybe those customers who couldn't get a charge card due to whatever reasons, or didn't want a charge card, now sign up for loyalty, and it's more ways to connect. So again, leveraging those assets. And finally, our associates, right? We have about 140,000 associates once you get into our peak periods of time and count seasonal employees. And there is from a customer satisfaction score, we do very, very well. And we have very engaged customers, and it's really due in large part to our engaged associates. So I think kind of how do we set ourselves apart and really play to our strengths? It's making sure we're leveraging our assets in the best way possible.
So you're talking about leveraging your assets, but as you go forward and look for, right, that strategy, what are you going to think about as these online retailers get into the door? Because Amazon's going to do it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
and they're
that's
starting.
Your strength, and that's what you're leveraging. Is there a thought of what's going to happen after that?
So we play to our strengths right now. I don't know that Amazon's play is to go grab 2,000, 1,000 stores in 49 states. necessarily, right? And they may do that over time. We need to evolve, and as we lay out our strategies, we absolutely need to take all that competition into space, into consideration. And what we do know is everything's evolving and everything's changing, right? More and more of that experience is going to online, and more of the shopping experience in general changes. Our key customers are a bit older, and as we look to and target millennials, and Tracy talked about how that group is coming into power, we need to be able to talk to them appropriately, whether through our stores and traditional brick and mortar. We've been very successful there, right? I see the store, my own wife jumps up and down when she gets enough discounts and you get Kohl's Cash and we pile these things on. That's how we tend to get very loyal customers who are very engaged. So we continue to play to that as well.
And there is some new thinking that's happening in how you're leveraging data to actually get after some of this new competitive thinking. What are some of those things that you're doing with some of the new data assets that you're gaining access to actually start to help the business shift its way of thinking to think differently about those strategies that could defend or protect or even disrupt in its own right?
Yeah, so Tracy, first thing, we absolutely treat data as oil, a true asset in our company. So as Pat said, with our industry penetration, with our Kohl's Charge Card, and our successful loyalty card, we have plenty of rich data about our customers. With Kohls.com and mobile and desktop being a big driver both in terms of traffic and revenue, we have a lot of behavioral data about our customers. So what we're doing differently is, one is we're making sure that the data that we have gathered thus far is first secure, right? So making sure from a network level and making sure all the PCI and PI data is encrypted. Secondly is we are investing in our big data platform built on top of Hadoop. So what we've done is the third thing we're doing is we're infusing digital data with our in-store data. The fourth thing we've done is we've really invested in building out a thing called enterprise view of the customer. And lastly, what I would say to you guys is heavy investment in the space of machine learning and artificial intelligence. And we're building this on top of a highly scalable platform. And so making sure that this data is available to our stakeholders.
Yeah. I think there's a combination of options to be looked at as you're thinking about how you're leveraging this new platform that you guys are developing and trying to address the business problems. And I know your business teams are really thinking strategically about what's coming ahead. So as we think about what's coming ahead, when you think about connecting to that customer and thinking about the customer first, how are you actually taking all that information in and flipping it on its head from where it used to be very product-centric or store-centric to now because you have the credit card program, you have the loyalty program as we talked about, and Yes to You, which is another way of looking at loyalty and really getting to the heart and joy of being a Kohl's customer. What are the other things that you're doing to turn into that customer-centric and meeting that millennial shopper where they're at?
Yeah, so Tracy, traditionally, just stepping back, we've always put customers first. In the past, our consumer insights team has leveraged the market research data. They've developed models and generated insights from our transaction data. The big shift we are making is to really fuse our transaction data with digital data. This third big thing that we're doing differently is we're looking at external data. So we're looking at demographics, we're looking at NPD, we're looking at census, we're looking at social, especially that our millennial shoppers are on social. So we are trying to bring all those data sources in one platform, put it all together with our internal data, and then use those insights to make informed decisions. And that's how we're doing things differently.
So some of those things I think we've talked about before are things like understanding the customer's preferences and allowing them to communicate to you through the mobile app right, that you have, allowing them to say, here are my preferences, not only in products, but in the things when I like to shop Kohl's. But also, aren't you guys using stuff like the images that are coming in through social media and other types of, like maybe even video or your Wi-Fi data? How are you leveraging that information to really start to change that view of the customer and what's going on in the store along with how they're behaving?
No, Tracy, great question. With social, what we've realized is, there is a lot of promise in the social data, right? There are a plethora of social listening tools which tell you more about the sentiment. And so what we realized was that data wasn't very actionable. And so we did a thorough gap analysis to figure out what are the tools that are available in the marketplace in terms of all the providers out there. And then we looked at channels like Instagram, Pinterest, Snapchat, Facebook, and we did some analysis to figure out where the big gaps are and how can we leverage that data to make some informed decisions. And what we realized was that our millennial shoppers were heavily engaging on Instagram, were heavily engaging on Pinterest. They were talking about the products they wanted to buy. And so what we did was we built technology and capabilities that can ingest that data, both images, videos, texts, and we have a strong data science team who have a lot of experience in image classification, text analytics. And so we've built algorithms that can process this data and figure out what the trends are. What are consumers saying about these products that they are liking? And so we've used that data to make informed decisions.
How about using that data to take action systems? I mean, insights is great, but at your scale, like the take action part, what are some of those connectors you've kind of done so you seem to get action?
Yeah, so the question is, what actions have we taken to connect the dots, right? And so a big portion of what we've done is we've talked to our stakeholders and we've demonstrated to them, for example, this jacket, which is clearly not on trend. Believe me, I'm not a very fashionable guy. But as an example, we have shown to them that, look, this category of merchandise is being talked about in the social space. This color, this style is being talked about, both in terms of the number of likes, in terms of number of comments, in terms of number of followers. And so that's number one. The number two thing we've done is, we've downloaded these images and we've run it through our image classification algorithms and really figured out what about this jacket is actually trending. And then we have taken these insights and showed it to our stakeholders in a very transparent way, right? We've educated them as to how we've got this data. So now they believe in what we're doing. And so because there is that belief and that trust, they're able to take more informed decisions and they're making those assortment choices based on the data we're providing them.
But I think you were, it was close, but I
Yeah.
think you were asking more about the automation part, or taking insights.
Taking the action, not just reporting to a stakeholder, but actually the automation that kind of drives things.
So are you leveraging, so are you changing your assortments based on this data? Like, is that the action being taken?
So I think he's asking, there's two questions. Let me make sure I'm hearing it. You're asking about the automation of, hey, we learned this about this type of trend, and we can automatically integrate that to our assortment planning system and create a new assortment mix.
Or maybe your email marketing that's targeted against demographics or,
Right. Yeah. So and Donna, correct me where I'm wrong. I think the question, when we think about from understanding who the customer is and knowing how to target them, yes, there's automation in the marketing side of this, and this work that has been done around the customer side. There is not as much automation yet on the assortment side when we're talking about this trend stuff, because one, there's not a lot of comfort yet in this ability to look at these images and video and text analytics that's coming through to help push that automation to the assortment process. There's still a lot of, merchants are merchants and they kind of grow up with a process to where I was actually going to go with my next question a little
Yeah.
bit is, as we start to integrate with the business and show them these insights, because marketing is a little bit of a different animal. We can do a lot around customer and automate customer response based on information we learn and know how to target. These products are going to go in these email campaigns, right? And we can target that right now. There's a lot of that type of capability with the analytics to the marketing side. Kohl's does a lot of that today. The assortment, which is where is the most challenging side, and which you're actually going to see, that's where we're focused mostly right today in this conversation, and some of the demos that we're actually going to show you in a minute, is more on that assortment side, which is where the biggest challenge is for most retailers, I would say, in today. Because marketing is something that I see more advancements happening in the digital space, in automation space, and less so on the merchandising. But Pat, given that you guys have been working with marketing and merchandising, how do you see the business actually responding to the use of this data, and how are they applying it differently? And I think maybe if you can highlight any examples of where in marketing you guys may have helped with some of that automation. Or
Yeah, and I think there's several insights in your questions, and I think you guys both pointed out a little bit. I think the opportunity to build dashboards and fancy visualizations that are interesting but not actionable kind of is a trap we can all fall into, and people get really excited and get behind something, and then they say, wait a minute, so I think just over 2 years ago now, or just about 2 years ago now, I remember we built a visualization that had Black Friday tweets, and it's, the hashtag Kohl, hey, what's going on? And there really wasn't much we could do. It was interesting to look at after the fact. What are you going to do with that? So when we're getting a Twitter feed and we're able to use it for the first time, people are excited at the possibilities and potential. But then back to what are the actions that can take place. Layering in this customer-centric view from an assortment perspective or product development in the merchandising space. One of the things we do is we develop products. They'll build them out to a customer profile. So they'll say, this brand, we feel like this is the customer who we're going to resonate with, that we're going to do well. Now that we can start applying a customer lens to it, we may find, we haven't necessarily resonated with that, or surprisingly enough, we've resonated elsewhere. And it just gives our merchants one more vehicle to be able to react. We're still pretty early in this process, right? We haven't automated that to, the merchandising side is an art and a science. If we want to talk about automating replenishments, I think we're going to have a lot of openness to some of that. But when it comes into product development or areas where creativity, we want to inform and look to the process to help embed information into those processes rather than automating and prescribing the answer every time. So it's going to be a change journey. We traditionally, the way we've seen the merchant teams work, they've got a lot of paper and a lot of binders, and we need to inform that and evolve the processes as well as the analytics.
So do you capture that data at a regional level or at a national level? Can you regionalize your assortments based on the data you're capturing?
We can, ultimately our goal will be to, at a store level, really localize. And we absolutely right now are to pretty low levels of localization.
That's a good segue, actually. Talk a little bit more about what's going on in this data space and how you're, given the organizational complexity, you guys have been going through a transformation internally as well in these merchant organizations. Let's talk about a little bit of this reporting landscape complexity that I'm sure a lot of retailers in the room are probably nodding their head, similar.
Yeah, here it is, right? We've got.
Very similar to what ours was, maybe.
We've got store merchants, we've got e-com merchants. Everybody has their own reports. We more than a year ago publicly said, okay, we're pulling our merchant teams together. We really need to have an omni experience, right? And being able to rationalize and have data available, right? So Omniture is our online browse behavior. Why wouldn't we necessarily leverage that in the brick and mortar channel? So in the traditional way, everybody's had their own reports. We're going through a transformation right now where we're rationalizing and bringing our buying offices together, but also the insights and analytics that will support those teams we're bringing together as well.
What about from a platform perspective? lot of there's a lot of stuff that already exists today. What are you doing about that from a data perspective?
Yeah, Tracy, I was just looking around and I see a lot of people nodding. I'm sure we all face the same challenge, right? Lots of traditional BI systems like MicroStrategy, we have Teradata, we have Netezza, lots of Oracle databases. So like data silos, data governance, need for self-service is all things that we are working on. And the big challenge we have ahead of us is, we have over 10,000 reports being generated on a regular basis with very little insights. So we have a lot of work ahead of us.
So, given that, what is the right formula? How do you move forward from there to the future? What are you guys looking at doing? And I mean, we are at a Tableau conference, so Tableau. So.
Yeah, so we're clearly on a mission to modernize our BI stack. And so the first thing, as I said, we did earlier was to really invest in Hadoop. And so we built out a big data Hadoop cluster. It runs both on-premise and can scale to the cloud. And what we're doing is we have built connectors that can ingest all the data from different data silo systems and bring it into our Hadoop system. The second thing we did was we're in the process of retiring certain reporting systems like Spotfire, and we signed up with Tableau, so we are here. And been very pleased with the rollout of Tableau with our certain stakeholders. The third thing that we're doing is really working with our stakeholders through our product management team and working in a very agile manner. So using the principles of design thinking and really understanding what their pain points are and building out capabilities in a very agile way, making sure that what we are building is something that they want. And so that's the big transformation that we're going through.
Sorry for the interruption. My bad. So when you think about those biggest areas of focus from a new customer or new capabilities, Pat, as you think about this new platform and how it's going to be available to the business, what are those areas of capabilities that you're really looking to
Okay,
spend
yeah.
time?
So Gautam called it out. We're ingesting lots of new data and bringing things together. I think having the ability to really listen to our customer, understand how they're interacting with us, being able to localize, we hit on it before, but really be able to understand the trade area around one of our stores, how people are interacting in an omni way, not just in that store, but digitally within that space as well. And then just actions we can make on product, whether it's assortment or just taking all of these signals now. We've got so much more data than we had even a couple of years ago to be able to action on product. And I think as we jump in here and get ready for some demos, we'll talk about how we're doing some of that.
Talk about, so you're doing this to capture current trends. Do you have any processes in place to actually drive trends, right? So based on what's happening, like sometimes you got to tell a consumer. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that comes into play. And hey, look, social. We're getting right there. And I think in this slide, one of the points here is we're hearing a lot in the social channels, and we start asking ourselves, how do we interpret and understand that? Trend is a really good example. We hit briefly on it before. But when we see what's occurring and out in whether it's Instagram or Pinterest or whatever, to understand what's happening with a trend, we can identify some things ahead of time and maybe act on them and bring something to market even faster, right? So there's some things we can do. I'm not saying we're necessarily there yet, but there's certainly things we're focused on.
Well, and I would say the Yes to You program was a good test of the waters with some of that, right? I mean, the Yes to You program, if anybody's familiar with the Yes to You, you can go out and you can find it on Twitter, you can look at Instagram, but it was really about connecting socially, Kohl's connecting socially to the community and to their existing shoppers, and also creating an engaging language. Some of their brand ambassadors, like Jennifer Lopez, was really heavily involved in this and getting the message out and setting. It was more about connecting with the community, but it got people to share as well about what they're were, what their interests were, how much they were actually identifying with the brand. And so that was a good way to test, for Kohl's to really test the waters as to how much influence could they actually bring through their current channels of communication.
Do your stores currently offer Wi-Fi for your customers?
We
Yeah.
do, and we're in the process of even upgrading that experience and making it better, but across all of our chains right now, Wi-Fi is available.
So why don't we dive into a couple of the examples, and then I know we're going to show a live demo in just a minute with Phil. But so let's dive into some examples of where we're turning some of these insights into assets around the customer and the store, and also some of those product actions. So Pat, you want to talk about the customer one?
Sure. As we jump in and understand some of the trends, and I kind of hit on this a little bit before, but really understanding what's being said with the voice of the customer, both in-season management and across as we plan, just to understand different trends that are happening out there. Coming up with some actionable decisions based on some of the momentum we've seen from the social channels.
Don, anything to add on this?
Yeah, so maybe I'll just give you a quick example, right? So take an example called sweatshirt, right, which we have shown over here. So what we've done is we've built a product that can actually look at certain search terms, and we can find what search terms are really trending in the blogosphere. And so what we've done is we built algorithms that can predict and find what's the momentum for that given search term. Because just because a search term is popular doesn't mean that it is actionable, right? You really want to know what's the momentum behind that search term, so that you can then take that piece of information to your merchants and you can say, look, this sweatshirt is seeing a significant momentum, so you might want to consider adding it to your assortment. And so, as part of our demo, we'll show you some of the capabilities that we've built thus far.
Well, then let's talk a little bit about this localization concept, right? There is a way to view, everybody's probably seen some of the geographical capabilities that Tableau brings to bear, right? But I think you guys have taken another spin around the wheel at using that capability to start thinking and overlaying the digital overlay with the actual store's data. Do you want to talk a little bit about what's going on and how you're using a little bit of that?
Sure. As we understand behaviors of our customers in the digital channel with respect to their geography or their location, so we can understand what's happening in a local community. So not only do we take external data and factors, but we can look at things like our browse and shop behavior online and maybe trends of things that are doing very well online that may not be doing as well in the store. For example, the ability to really look and monitor and react faster really, really becomes critical and important. So when we have the concepts of in-season management as well as next season planning. Within in-season management, if we're seeing trends that happen historically, we've always been able to do that, we can now augment that with some things that are happening online and maybe make decisions. So if we have a product that sells both in the store and online and it's doing well in one channel and not as well in the other, are there actions we need to take to adjust for that? Otherwise, we can conversely look at things that are doing very well online that we may not sell in the store, right? So we can take some actions there as well.
And then overlaying new data sets like climate data, weather data, not only the social data like we have been talking about, and I'm sure there are some retailers who do a lot more of that analysis today than probably others have in the past, particularly those that dealt with apparel. But so I know you guys have been using some of that to do that. How does that impact what you do from also a product's perspective? How do you layer that in to help the business use all of that, these new data sets for better product selection? What's going on with that?
Yeah, so what we've done is, as Pat said, we've really infused digital data with our store data, right? So for example, a great source of information is ratings and reviews for the products we sell on kohls.com. But we also sell some of those merchandise in the store. So we've taken the ratings and reviews data from our digital properties and giving it to our merchants to tell them how those assortments are doing in those local markets. So that is one example where we've taken this data to tell them what is doing well, what is not. Tracy talked about climate. Clearly, as you all know, weather plays a pretty important role for retailers. And so, again, we are using weather to figure out how do we merchandise our assortments in the store, but how do we present them? So a good example is, a store in Seattle, clearly where it rains a lot, we'll have a lot of umbrellas and jackets out in the front, versus in California, where it's more sunny, we'll have a different set of merchandise right in front of where the customers enter. So little things like these do add up, and these are just some examples that we are leveraging this data to make some informed decisions.
And Pat, I think the last one we were going to talk about is a little bit around product level actions based on some of this Omni data. And I know you're going to walk with Phil through some of the demo, but anything you want to highlight as we kick into the demo?
Well, I did mention a few of these things before, but really now how do we start thinking about things and making applications or tools that are actionable, that provide a recommendation? I think it'll be a little bit more effective as we jump in, but you'll be able to see how do we layer this many dimensions together to look at, and in this example, maybe some white space merchandising analysis that we can do.
Yeah. And I think what you're going to see here is where we didn't give you, this is where we're focusing more on merchandising in this discussion. Some of this type of information, next best offer, things like that can apply from a marketing perspective, can apply from a merchandising perspective. You just have to turn the lens a bit differently, and you have to apply a different treatment to that stakeholder group, right? And so that's a little bit of what we're trying to do with some of these capabilities of recommending products. So Phil, why don't we switch it over, and you and Pat and Dottam can show everybody a little bit about these capabilities.
Yeah, as Phil is demonstrating the capability, one thing I do want to highlight is one thing that we have done differently is just not produced an enterprise report. What you will see is we're actually prescribing certain actions that can be taken. Because one of the key insights we learned from our business stakeholders is, as I've said earlier, they have plenty of reports, right? They get plenty of data reports. And so what we've done is we've built machine learning algorithms to actually tell them what actions they can take. And Phil will walk you through some of those.
Yeah, so this was one of the first tools we actually built together with the new merchant organization. We talked about it a little bit before, where we had like the siloed organizations, e-com and in-store, separate from each other. But with this new unified group, we really needed new insights and leverage both the online digital data as well as the in-store data that we have. So I'm going to walk through this example of this tool and kind of like highlight one or two use cases that we came up with, and along the way point out how we work together with the merchant organization. So first of all, the purpose of this tool is really to help the merchant organization in season to really optimize their assortment, right? So we have this long assortment planning process. So we really want to make sure that when we actually have it in store or online, that we make the best out of it. That we have to reduce our markdowns at the end of the season. So for this example, what we'll be looking at is a very specific department, which is pretty much PJs, right? Very simple. A lot of our retailers carry those, and we'll highlight a couple examples how they're actually very different, right? So you would assume they're very similar to each other, but we can actually get insights to optimize our assortment. For the purpose of this demo, we're looking at 1 month of data just to make sure that everybody's on the same page. So what are we looking at here? At the top left, you see the scatter plot, right? And each one of the shapes or bubbles that you see is a unique product. So if you would hover over it, you can see this is clearly the Beachside Dreams pajamas. And what's different than what we've done before is we kind of not only give you statistics and reports where you have to go through, we actually make a recommendation for you
that you can then validate with your own business experience to make sure that it's actually the best possible action that we can take for this. So these 4 different quadrants, just so like everybody's on the same page, the quadrants are just like a window average of what we're looking at. Since we're looking at one department, we expect it to be like sort of homogeneous. Okay? So, and we're looking at the 2 averages for 2 different metrics right here. I talked about like how we're trying to like put an omni-channel lens on it. So on the y-axis, we see that we use online views that we localize for each store to kind of like understand like how is the interest level online. And then as well, we use in-store sales for the x-axis to kind of give you like perspective like how is it doing in store. So these 4 quadrants that you're looking at easily show you, for example, high interest online, high interest in store. And then you just go around and you see that even though the department is very small, it has like a wide variety of things. So I think one of the things that was very challenging at the beginning was to like bring those huge data sets together, right? Like we're looking at a product level data by store. So we had to do like a lot of optimization around it and kind of like cater specifically to the merchants to make sure they're on page with this. So this wasn't like a technology project. I think we talked about product management before. This wasn't a technology project where we went off, built something, and then kind of like, here you go, like, better figure it out. So we, from the beginning, worked together with the merchants on the 2-week sprint cycles, and we had engagement from these new merchandise teams that were really eager to like develop their new capabilities with like this new 2-world data set that they're kind of like uniting now. So a lot of like what you see is the design thing that we came up with together with them.
And I'll just chime in a little bit here, Phil. Some of these type of examples were projects that a merchant in the e-com world might come to us and say, hey, we think we have a product here that's doing really well. Can we figure out will this do well in stores? And we'd run away for a few weeks and come back and say, I'm not sure. Or we'd say, look, we plotted it on zip codes. And everyone would say, okay, how much time? So those proved to be very ineffective methods. Now, when you have something here, and I think Phil did a good job of explaining this, it's online views versus in-store sales. There's a line going down the middle, there's a regression line. So just basically, if something lands on that line, it's doing about what you would expect it to do. It's as productive online as it is in store. So really, Scatterplot's very good at looking at outliers. So that's where it becomes actionable to the merchant teams. And they help craft some of this. There was, Phil and team worked with people individually. So when we look at a couple examples, I think that'll help bring it to life. That scatter plot is all, we talked about a month's worth of data. It's the whole month on the plot. On the right side, you actually see over time the product, so you can see maybe when a markdown occurred or where something happened online. So you're looking over time at the same month worth of data you can drill in. The top one is really online views versus online conversions. So views versus conversions. Where the bottom one is in-store traffic, right? We don't have eyes on product, so we don't know that they were looking at that product. We're just looking at average traffic in a store versus sales of that product. Okay, so now we can actually look at some of the outliers, start seeing down below, we start seeing the actual data rows and the recommendations that are performed with some decision tree analysis that, and Gautam talked a little bit about the algorithms earlier.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point. Like the more we move into machine learning and like really advanced techniques, we really don't want to leave the business behind at that point. So like we were really close to them when we were building like the prediction models and like the decision tree, so that they can identify with it, right? So like they really were engaged in like shaping this product. So one of the recommendations that I want to point out that we provide is like Pat said, we're really looking for the outliers. We have like an extreme outlier right here, which is a lot of online interest, but really not a lot of in-store sales, and that's because it's web exclusive. However, we know that a lot of people really want this product, so to optimize like the productivity of our assortment, our inventory that we already have, we might want to consider some actions like added to like the store assortment, to like a couple of very popular stores, so that we can convert it not only online and digital channels, but also in store. Then I think the second thing, we also have like this outlier over here. It says like no action required. But it's really crucial that we look at this on a product level, right? These are like products across all stores in the US. We really challenge ourselves and the merchants as well. They challenged us like, hey, I know this product is doing really well. Like, how can I figure out if this product is doing well in certain regions? Is there like a certain group of stores that we can address and make it even better than it's doing right now? So what a merchant would do is like when they use this tool probably like every 2 weeks for in-season management to get caught up, is simply select the product and you'll see it automatically updates our two graphs that we talked about on the right-hand side. It will give you some insight into like how the product has been doing over like the last 30 days in this case. And if we look at like the online sales versus online traffic, you see like the lines, they are pretty close until like a certain point, until we hit like June 20th. So that's when like sales, which is like the purple line, drops significantly below the traffic. That means at this point that our conversion rate just dropped. And that's where really the merchants come in. They know their product better than anybody else. They know what sort of marketing is going around that product for like a given time. So they can identify and evaluate like price changes as well as marketing changes that happen over time. But,
Question.
yeah.
How are you planning on integrating the social listening components into this so you can evaluate why that product might be doing so well or not well? Or maybe it's coming up, I don't know. And you said you're doing that, so I would assume, is there an eventual plan to integrate that into this?
So in this particular product, right, we're pretty early on and we're pretty excited that we have the ability to do this. In these type of analytical products, we're going to start laying out the roadmap for what our business teams want more as we sprint and add additional capabilities. There's quite a bit to add before we get to social listening, but absolutely, you start looking for the causals. What caused me to drop right there? Can I bring in my price changes? Can I bring in my marketing events? All of these things start getting added to the backlog, but truly they need to be actionable. And oftentimes you'll sit with a merchant team, they'll look at this and they'll say, oh, of course, this is what happened. We had our marks that day. You don't need to spend thousands of man hours bringing in that data for that. But to your point, yes, we're building that roadmap and we don't have it solidified yet, but it's absolutely on the backlog.
And I would say though that they are using it more, not in this particular product of analytics, but there are other areas and categories that they are using the social listening piece where it is more impactful to the current set of demographics or the millennials that they're targeting with those. So these might not be the millennial products per se. These are just very high performing items at this point in time, and so we're not necessarily applying the social listening capability to these categories. Because it's not always, you don't want to peanut butter it right now, right? You want to be very specific because of the type of data sets, and you can get higher value out of those data sets for certain categories. And not every category is equal when it comes to where millennials are paying attention and speaking socially about those things.
So is there a reason you look at views and not conversion here? Like instead of scoring a recommendation like at the stores, but your conversion was, you had 27,000 views but 2,000.
And it's really,
Is it because like the millennial likes to look at it and maybe not buying on stores?
potentially, so we could just as easily switch that access to be the actual conversion rate. Views is just, can we get the online behavior of what's being looked at? And that's part of why we bring view and conversion rate over there, so we have the reference point. So.
Yeah, I was just curious if maybe that consumers actually, like they go online, they view it, but then they go in the store.
Right, and we certainly, that's one of the potentials that we've been looking for.
So like to that point, like the decision tree that works in the background obviously doesn't just look at online views and in-store sales. So there's a lot more cuts there where we take into consideration pricing, where we take into considering like profit margins, where we take into consideration like conversion. So like all these recommendations, right now we have got like 8 or 9 of those. Like they're built on like a lot more metrics at the back end, but this is just like for you to visually capture what's there. Like I always hate when I see like 3D bubble charts and you don't really know what's going on, right? Like we want it to be simple so you can understand it, but then the action be driven by like actual insights and actually data-driven decisions at the end of the day.
So in terms of narrowing it down to a store or trade area, how are you narrowing the digital or mobile traffic to the same geography?
Yeah, so one good proxy for us is obviously the IP address. So we are, yes. Yeah, so we're using IP address to zip code, and then we have a mapping to figure that out.
Do you guys capture, at the IP level, at the customer IP level, the web traffic and store sales?
That is correct, we do that. So for customers who have signed in, we're able to marry online behavior to offline behavior. And we've actually built our own matching algorithm, because as you can imagine, with customers using multiple devices, multiple channels, the cookie IDs are not always the same. The device IDs with iOS not giving MAC addresses, we have to build our own algorithm. And so we've got Kohl's charge card, we've got loyalty IDs. So we built a pretty sophisticated algorithm that helps us match these customers. And it's been a journey for us thus far.
Now that you've dumped all those vectors, you're doing that in the data scientists?
That is correct. So this is a good call out. I'm going to use this 2 minutes to talk about the data science aspects. One is, we are investing heavily in the space of machine learning and data science. I started this team with a team of 1, and we've grown this to 40 people, out of which 25 are data scientists. And so, we are hiring in every aspects. My Carrie, who's my peer here, she's hiring product managers, we're hiring analysts, we're hiring data engineers, we're hiring data scientists. And we're hiring people in all locations, in Milpitas, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and New York. So folks who are interested, please come and talk to me.
Yeah, he basically told me I need to start working myself out of a job, which I've already planned on doing anyway, so, yeah.
Okay, just to run out, when we were talking about the localization. So remember, we had this one product that's performing really well, where we don't have a product level recommendation, but we challenge ourselves to really drive it on a localized store level. So what we do is we pretty much just select this product and then jump to the next page, which now, just to be clear, this is a contrast. We're looking at one product, but the bubbles on the top left in the scatter plot, still window averages, same thing, still the same metrics, but now each one is a store. So for this one product, we also make recommendations for each individual store to optimize the performance of this product. And I think what's really interesting is one of the use cases we talked a lot about is that we have a bunch of items that are doing fairly well online, but they're not really converting in the store. And we don't really know what it is, but one of the things that we found is that, hey, it might be just a placement. It's very easy to find online. You have a search box, you just go and look for it. But it might be placed in a really unfortunate place in store. So what would happen is we test it. We take the store in a couple of these stores out, put it displayed more prominently, and see if it actually changes the behavior of this product over time.
So kind of back to that actionable piece, we're not necessarily getting to, here's a recommendation exactly what will happen, but here's a case where we're looking at a product that is very successful, and we see things where, wow, either something's missing at execution, or we got to get that product, it's not resonating in some locations. So, if you highlight everything in the lower left quadrant, Phil, just the lower left stores, oh yeah, right? So geographically, are they plotted in the same place? So there's some things we can do can we look for some trends to take action on those stores? But we have the stores listed. We can look and say, okay, yeah, we're looking at these, and it's in a cold weather climate, so it's not going to be doing well yet. But again, it's that simple yet actionable approach.
Do you move product adjacencies quite a bit?
Yes, but not always based on, this type of decision making. So much more at the macro level. We do like to give some, we have a way we like things set up, but there's certainly the ability for store managers to move things around as well.
As you mentioned, well, maybe it's in a bad part of the store, but the funny thing is you can move that up front, what product you're going to put back in there. You're going to cannibalize,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it just depends, and that's why having this type of insight, you can actually start to see and learn based on what you moved, right? So you can actually have that merchant, the two merchants have a conversation. We moved this behind, we moved this out front, now let's watch the two over the period of time, and then you actually can test and learn over really shorter periods of time versus like making the gut decisions that they used to make. And sometimes it was a win and sometimes it wasn't.
Like, so when you do your test on learners, you then spread that through your BI framework? Be it Tableau or whatever other BI you use?
Overlaying it?
Just in general, like to
So we definitely have,
call it out in, like.
we have test and learn methodologies. It's not necessarily leveraging Tableau at this point.
Okay.
But yeah,
Other.
other.
I know we're running
Other
close
acronyms,
out of time, but I do want to open up for questions, please. If I know, but I don't. If you need to go, please feel free to go ahead and go. But I wanted to make sure everybody had some time for questions or any other comments.
Do you have an analysis that actually
Yes, but that's a little too sensitive for us to share. We've done some work, and we actually have some visualizations that we've done in Tableau with that, but it's actually too much of a sensitive topic right now, and dealing with some really highly sensitive products. So.
When did you stand up your big data environment? How long ago?
So we started this journey about 3 years ago.
3 years ago?
Yes.
Okay. You said
But
you started, if I heard you correctly, with one data scientist?
yes, with one engineer, that is correct.
Okay.
But then, I was, being in Silicon Valley, I was able to really attract a lot of talent, and we've grown the team significantly since then.
The study you mentioned from Deloitte online, is that just go to your website, it's easy to find there? or-
Yeah, if you just go to Deloitte.com and in the search bar you type in the either digital divide study, that was the original one in 2013, or you can do digital influence study, which was the more updated version, which should be 2016. And you actually should get a hit for all of them at that point. I think we've updated all the taxonomy on that, the taglines. Or you can also find it should be on my LinkedIn, so if you look me up on LinkedIn, you can see it there as well. We really appreciate you guys, and thank you to Kohl's for joining Deloitte, and thank you for coming. Thanks so much.